Now inside this box, I have one of the sneakiest football boot releases of 2020. I'm a huge fan of them. I would probably have them in my top 5 right now in terms of like a rotation of football boots that I would personally love to wear. But if you're a fan of leather boots that are extremely well made, there's a lot to like about these. And I apologize for being a little bit late to the party, but what I have for you today is the Diadora B-Elite Tech Italia, the B standing for Brazil. And the boot is basically a really nice hybrid of classic Diadora styling and materials with some modern design in the form of a super lightweight outsole, and honestly a boot that, despite looking very traditional, is just remarkably light. There is one catch, however, and that is the price. These guys retail for $275. However, they've been out since September, have not been all that popular, and retailers now have them on sale for the holiday season, where you can actually pick these up with some SR4U coupon codes for $152.99. First link down below. The coupon code will be on the review page if you're interested in some of these for basically $125 off roughly. This is probably one of the best leather football boots you can buy for that kind of money. They're really impressive. Nonetheless, I want to go over all the details in today's video because I think that this really is a phenomenal hybrid of old school as well as new school design elements all combined into one. So if you want to learn more about them, including how they fit and feel on feet, please stick around, watch the entire review. And like I mentioned, if you're interested in a pair for yourself at a discounted price for a limited time, first link down below, go and check it out. As always, if you guys do end up enjoying this video and perhaps want to see more content of the lesser known brands, don't forget to support this one with a like and let me know specifically what you'd like to see down below in the comment section. And of course, if you're new here watching for the first time and don't want to miss out on weekly content on everything football boots, make sure you hit that subscribe button along with the little bell notification so you get notified when the next new video goes live. Now, as for the boots themselves, even though I don't think anybody buying this boot is buying it for aesthetic reasons, it must be noted, and this is of course just personal opinion here, it's not the most attractive football boot in terms of overall design and even the finishing in terms of the branding. If you look at the Diadora logo, it literally looks like it was painted on with a stencil or something like that. It's just not the most vibrant. The edges are very kind of fuzzy, I guess is the best way to put it. And in person, I'm not sure how it's going to look in video. This kind of orangish red color looks very faded already. It's just the way that it is against the black leather upper. I like the detail of the Italian flag right there towards the back of the heel. The embroidered Brazil Elite branding on the back I think looks quite good as well. It does say made in Italy on the tongue, and it does have the embroidered Diadora logo, which I'm quite a big fan of. And then the sole plate kind of has this matte black finish to it that arguably does look a little bit cheap. In general, this is a football boot that I think will appeal to a lot of the boot nerds out there because it really does, probably more than any other football boot that you can currently buy, really have this handmade aesthetic to it, which you might think is really ugly, or if you're like me, you might think it's really cool. Again, not the most attractive football boot in the world, but if you're a fan of little handmade details, there's nothing else like this. Speaking of the details, part of the reason why this football boot retails for $275 is because they're handmade by Diadora in Montebelluna, Italy, which is the same place where Nike makes their professional pro-issued football boots. Not the same factory, of course. Nike and Diadora are two separate companies, but it's the same city or area in Italy. Why does this matter? Now, once upon a time, back when I was a kid, Diadora was one of the brands to have. Before the days of synthetic and knitted uppers, leather boots were what everybody wanted, and Diadora was one of the premier brands in terms of making some of the finest leather football boots that money could buy. Obviously, since then, Diadora has hugely dropped off in terms of popularity, but they're trying to revive the brand at least a little bit here with the B-Elite Tech Italia, which I probably don't think is the best name for a football boot. It's just overly complicated, not that interesting. But the boot itself is made from super high quality Diadora leather, as you would expect from the brand. And I really like what they've done here. You can see that towards the front, You have lots of stitching, which is kind of the opposite of what you find from most football boots these days, even leather ones. So it's very old school in terms of its construction there. And it has this really plush, soft, padded feel, a super dampened sensation on the ball, great comfort against your foot. They just feel phenomenal. And then as you transition into the midfoot, you can see that the leather gets a lot more flat. It's still made from the same material. It's still super soft, but it's tanned differently. So it has that really thin sensation. Same thing goes for the tongue, which has kind of an interesting design where it's not actually stitched in as a separate piece. It's just integrated into the one single piece of leather for this entire upper that kind of just flows up the top. So it's partially kind of one piece towards the bottom, but it eventually just ends up being a standard central lacing system and a free floating tongue, which is also something that we almost never see on a pair of football boots. But it's really cool that the leather is everywhere. Even on this little back heel strip, that's made from actual leather. Now, what I'm sure you want to know is what kind of leather is it? And that's where Diadora is, I think, maybe being a little bit suspicious in terms of what they list as tech specs, because all they say that this is premium leather, which leads me to believe that it's not kangaroo leather, which I think is widely regarded as the best of the best when it comes to the type of leather that you'll find on a top-end football boot. But it's also worth noting that kangaroo leather comes from a kangaroo. Kangaroos are, as far as I know at least, only available in Australia. So to have football boots made in Italy out of kangaroo leather, it's not really Italian materials, if that makes any sense. So if I had to guess, these are probably made from calfskin, which is not a bad thing. Let me be very clear in that this is as soft as pretty much any kangaroo leather that you can buy. And really what matters most about leather, more so than the type, is the quality on that specific model. And honestly, this is some of the nicest leather you are going to find on any football boot, period. Like I mentioned, the boots do have a central lacing system with a free floating tongue, which is nice to see. The tongue itself is made of leather and it's backed by this super thin microfiber material, but does have a thin layer of memory foam as an insert, just for the sake of increasing comfort and potentially reducing any kind of lace bite. Feels really nice, compresses just the right amount. Moving to the rear, you're gonna find a standard low-cut design, a little bit of a tail at the back that is kind of unnecessary, but at the same time doesn't really bother me. And then this is where, again, you can see how kind of handmade these look. There's a lot of padding through the back of the heel as well as along the sides, more so than average in terms of what you'll find on most football boots. And it's lined in this microfiber. It feels almost like a suede, but it is a synthetic. It's gonna wear a lot more nicely. It is a little bit slippery against a regular pair of socks, so that's something to note about it. But in general, from a comfort perspective, it feels very, very nice. I just think maybe it might actually be a little bit too padded. Had they reduced the padding slightly, the heel lockdown might have been that little bit better, but that's just a random guess. And then as far as the insole is concerned, it's fully removable and pretty much as generic as it gets. It's a standard mesh liner on top. Really cool Diadora logo with the Italian flag right there. And then it's made from a single layer of this black foam with yellow foam inserts. Admittedly very imperfect, but again, it kind of goes to the whole handmade charm that this football boot has. Moving to the sole plate and stud pattern, if you're really familiar with the Diadora brand, then you might recognize this design because it is taking a lot of inspiration from what we've seen in the past in terms of the stud pattern as well as the general look of the sole plate. Something that is a little bit more modern is the addition of a one-piece external heel counter, which is pretty much the same shape that we saw originally on the 2010 F50 and Mizuno Morelia Neo. We've seen this from so many brands now, so it's not too surprising that they've done it this way. Add some nice structure in the heel and of course helps to reduce the weight as much as possible. But then the sole plate, it does have a little bit of a stiffener bar in the form of the actual Diadora logo, which just flows very nicely into design. Very good logo integration, I would say. And it has these little spines as well to kind of stiffen across the forefoot, which is nice. But the sole plate itself is quite thin and really flexible. This is one of the softest sole plates you're gonna find on any top-end football boot right now, which is probably not a good thing if you're a big fan of that kind of springy sensation that you get from something like a Mercurial or the new X-Ghosted Speed Frame. But if you just want something that's super natural and just feels instantly comfortable, I really like the flexibility of this. I've always been a fan of softer sole plates in the forefoot, and this is definitely one of the softest that you can get right now. That's something that you're either gonna love or hate. Very much a personal preference thing. From a build quality perspective, you will also find 3 metal rivets attaching the sole plate to the upper at the tip of the toe, which again is something that we very rarely see on football boots in 2020. And then the stud pattern is classic Diadora. They're kind of this teardrop shape, so they are mostly conical, but they have a little bit more bite because of the bladed edge that they have. In general, because of the flexibility of the sole plate, you really have as many studs underneath your foot when planted, no matter which way you're twisting and turning. And despite looking pretty ordinary, I would say the traction in general is quite above average. I'm a big fan of what they've done with this design. And then there's the weight, where I did mention that these feel very lightweight considering the style of football boot that it is, but as you'll see in just a second, they're not necessarily groundbreakingly light like the Mizuno Morelli and Neo series as an example. However, those also don't feature a complete leather upper. So in a size 9 US, which I'll get into in just a second, you can see that they weigh in at 8.25 ounces, the equivalent of 234 grams. So they are on the upper end of the weight range as far as top end football boots go. Still a little bit lighter than what you're gonna get from, say, a Predator 20 Plus from the Adidas brand. But in general, for a football boot of this style, for a football boot that has as much leather as it does and of a quality standard that it does, this is very lightweight. So here are the boots on feet, which I think look a lot better once they're tied up and kind of just take to the shape of your foot. And that's really what's so great about these, and I think what separates them from a lot of modern football boots, where modern boots, because objective performance is taken into consideration maybe a little bit more or maybe to a higher level than what old school leather boots did provide back in the day, they have this more predetermined shape that you're kind of forced to fit into, where a full leather boot like this, it's so soft, it's so flexible, it doesn't really require any break-in time because of how nice they are out of the box, but they over time adjust to the exact shape of your foot, where you don't really get that molded sensation or that molded fit from a lot of modern boots with synthetics and knits, just because they don't have the same general stretch characteristics as soft leather does. So something to keep in mind, although you definitely do lose out on some lockdown as well as responsiveness, because there isn't a ton of structure to this very soft leather, but it makes up for that in the comfort category. I would say my main complaint in regards to the construction of this boot is, again, that heel liner. There's, to me, a little bit too much padding, and it can be a little bit slippery, although the lockdown can definitely be improved with some grip socks. You can see I am currently wearing some black pure grip socks, which are the most affordable grip socks on the market, bearing a retail price of just $14.99. They're available in a wide variety of different colors, and of course you can get all of them at puregripsocks.com, which will be linked down below, so be sure to go ahead and check that out. As far as fit and width is concerned, they are Diadora boots. I think you can see by the overall shape of them on my feet that they definitely have some decent width to them. If you had really narrow feet, I don't think these would necessarily be the best option for you, but if you had really wide feet, I think these will be an excellent option for you. And then if you're somewhere in the middle, you should be okay as well. I would say that I fall into that particular category. They don't squeeze your feet in any way, and of course, as you wear them in, the leather is going to stretch. So I think more important than the overall width is the sizing, which can be a little bit tricky because they do run a little bit large. The first pair that I got in these was my usual 9.5 US, and they were just way too big. The pair that I'm wearing here is a size 9, and they fit significantly better. So I would strongly recommend, if you're planning on picking these up, to go down half a size in order to get the proper fit. This is definitely not one of those football boots that you want to buy with a ton of extra growing room. So in conclusion, should you buy the Diadora B-Elite Tech Italia? And I think it depends on what your philosophy is in regards to football boots. If you are a big fan of modern technology, responsiveness, lockdown, something like a Mercurial as an example, then you should probably stay as far away from these as you possibly can. They're just not going to be your cup of tea. But if you're a fan of the classics, if you're a fan of high quality leather football boots, and you don't mind giving up a little bit of lockdown and responsiveness for the sake of really this slipper-like comfort and just phenomenal soft touch on the ball, then I really don't think that there's anything else that even comes close to this model, especially for the $150 price tag that you can get them for right now. For me, this is kind of a breath of fresh air. It's a football boot that we never see anymore, and I like the fact that it's as old school as it is, but it still has the modern elements in regards to the general shape, as well as the sole plate and stud pattern. They're not as good from an objective performance standpoint as most top-end football boots, but they're not far behind, and the trade-off that you get in terms of all of the comfort and just purity that a football boot like this has. It's such a cool experience, and if you're a fan of that leather boot experience, you should definitely get some of these. Anyways, guys, that's it for my review. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to support it with a like. Again, if you're interested in picking these up while they're on sale, first link down below, it's gonna take you to the review page on my website. All the info you need, including the coupon code, is listed there. If you have any questions regarding these boots, feel free to leave them down below in the comments, and I'll do my best to get an answer out to you. If you are not subscribed to the channel already, make sure you hit that subscribe button along with the little bell notification so you get notified when the next new video goes live. You can find all my social media information linked down below in the description as well. And other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.